webinar.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, sorry about that. Welcome to the ballot issue presentation for the 2022 state, county, and BVSD ballot. Before we begin, I want to invite those who would like to listen in Spanish to click the globe at the bottom of your Zoom screen to choose the Spanish interpretation option. We'll pause for a moment while our interpreters give this instruction in Spanish. My name is Anna Lamarck, and I'm the Operations Coordinator for the League of Women Voters of Boulder County. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization founded in 1920 to help some women, white women, exercise their newly won right to vote. For more than 90 years, League members have worked here in Boulder County to encourage informed and active participation in government and influence public policy through education and advocacy. We support the rights of all people to engage in political processes and work to make democracy work for everyone. To remain nonpartisan, the League never supports or opposes political candidates or parties. Each election season, our local ballot issues team researches, prepares materials, and publicly presents analyses on the pro and con perspectives of each ballot question or issue before voters in Boulder County. Our presenters today are Deborah Hayes, Peggy Leach, Lisa Moreno, Susan Saunders, and Charles Duché. We are grateful to our interpreter, Rosabel Rice. Just a note about this afternoon's forum, you can submit your questions using the Q&A button on the bottom tab. When questions are very similar, we summarize and pose one question to our speaker. With that, let's begin with our state ballot issues.
I guess you need to move the slide. Okay, so we'll cover the statewide issues first, and there are 11 this year. So they're placed on the ballot by either the legislature, referred to voters by legislature, or by a petition. So if referred by legislature, at least 2/3 of each chamber is required for amendments, and a majority of each chamber is needed for statutory changes. And then for a proposed ballot measure to make the ballot by petition, the signature requirement is 124,632 signatures of registered Colorado voters, and most groups get substantially more signatures than that. Next slide, please. So we can have either amendments or propositions. Amendments are changes to the Colorado Constitution and may only be changed by a voter-approved constitutional amendment. Propositions are statutory changes, and they just change the Colorado statutes. So they may subsequently be modified by legislative action without going back to the voters. And I'll also mention that constitutional amendments are required to receive 55% of the vote to pass, and propositions only need a simple majority. Next slide, please. This year's ballot has 3 constitutional amendments, D, E, and F, and they were all referred by the legislature either unanimously or very close to unanimous. This means there was strong bipartisan support to refer these to the voters. There are 8 propositions. 2 came from the legislature, Proposition FF and GG. FF garnered some, but not overwhelming bipartisan support, and GG was referred mostly along partisan lines. Next slide, please. And then the other 5 propositions are citizen initiatives, propositions 121 through 126. And remember that all of these needed at least 124,000 signatures to be placed on the ballot. So any questions about the designations of the different kinds of issues?
I don't see any questions regarding how they're placed on the ballot, Peggy.
All right, thank you. So we'll go to Charles now, who will talk about Amendment D.
Thank you, Peggy. And good afternoon, everyone, to this wonderful Colorado fall afternoon. Amendment D creates a new 23rd judicial district and populates it with district judges. In 2020, the Colorado legislature split the 18th judicial district into the 18th, which would be Arapahoe County only, and the 23rd district, which is Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln districts. It's a referred amendment to the Constitution and directs the governor to designate judges from the current 18th district to serve in the new 23rd district. It requires designated judges who reside in the 23rd district. If they're appointed to that district, okay, we appear to have lost our slides. Thank you. Requires those judges that are designated for the 23rd district to reside in that district by January 2025. It also designates judges to finish their terms in the 23rd district. The 18th Judicial District, a little bit of background on this. 18th Judicial District was drawn more than 50 years ago, and now as it currently stands, has a population of more than 1 million people, or almost 20% of Colorado's population. The legislature decided to split this into 2 districts, as was mentioned earlier. Those in favor of it feel that this would allow for the districts to work more efficiently and would not have any delays in seating judges. The proposed amendment defines the correct number of, providing for the correct number of judges. And there would be 18 judges in the 18th district, and there would be 8 judges in the 23rd district. Those opposed say that this conflicts with the Colorado Constitution, and the amendment limits judges who live in the 18th district, and why not open it to the traditional nomination process. It should be noted too that this is a one-time only exception. Any future judge appointments would be through the nomination process. Are there any questions? Seeing none?
I don't see any, Charles. Yep, go ahead.
Okay, seeing none, I'm going to turn this over to Susan for Amendment E.
Thank you, Charles. I apologize to everybody viewing this that my camera isn't working, so you get to miss my smiling face. But well, starting with Amendment E, this is an amendment which was referred to the Constitution, and it would extend the homestead property tax exemption to Gold Star spouses. Currently, the homestead exemptions exist for those 65 and older who have lived in their homes for at least 10 years and to disabled veterans. And this would change that so that the spouses of deceased veterans could also file for the property tax exemption, or the spouses of veterans who died in service.
Let's go back to E, the slide for E.
Oh, yeah. Nope, other direction. There you go. Thank you. The exemption takes half of the first $200,000 value of your home and reduces your property taxes by that amount. Currently, the state will reimburse counties for the exempted amount of property tax. So there's no loss for the counties in terms of revenue. Then the source of the funds is either over-realized revenue above the Tabor limit, and that would automatically pay for the exempted amount to the counties. And if we're in a year where the Tabor limit has not been met and there's no refund due, it would take the amount that goes to the counties out of the general fund. There are a little over 266,000 people who get this property tax currently, simply by being 65 or older. There are another 9,000 disabled veterans who receive this or take advantage of this exemption. And it is estimated there might be another 900 spouses who would qualify, somewhere between 500 and 900. There's varying figures for 2023. Those in favor of this amendment say that this tax relief is available to qualified residents over 65 and qualified disabled veterans, but the families of service members who lost their lives do not receive this same relief, and that is inconsistent. Service members who died in the line of duty paid the ultimate price to protect the US and its citizens. And while the state can't repay the families for that loss, it can provide a modicum of financial relief. Those who are opposed to this amendment say that in the years where state revenue exceeds the revenue limit, the reimbursement would come out of excess revenue and would reduce the refund amount. In years without a refund, with the state revenues are already tight, the reimbursement would be coming out of the state general fund. And the earmarking portions of the general fund revenue and limiting them to a specific purpose by statute or constitution reduces the flexibility of the governor and the state general assembly in a year where constrained funds need to be distributed amongst a myriad of competing needs. So, are there any questions about that?
Yeah. Giving it a moment here, Susan, but I don't see any at this time.
Okay. Well, then we'll move on to Peggy for the next proposition.
All right, I'm on Amendment F, changes to charitable gaming organizations. So this reduces the required period of existence for a charitable organization to obtain a bingo raffle license from 5 years down to 3 years, and allows the legislature to establish a different requirement starting in 2025 if they want to. And it allows, but does not require, a member of a nonprofit charitable organization to receive compensation up to the minimum wage for managing a bingo raffle game. And then it repeals the constitutional restriction on compensation beginning July 1st, 2024. So this is referred from the legislature. And just regards to the bingo and raffle operations, and it will need 55% of the vote to pass. So since the early days of our state, regulations regarding gambling and charitable gambling have been found in the Colorado Constitution. So the legislature doesn't have the authority to change it without voters' approval. Types of organizations eligible to receive this type of license include lodges, chapters of national or state organizations, religious, charitable, labor, fraternal, educational organizations, voluntary firefighters, or veterans organizations, political parties, and the Colorado State Fair Authority. Currently, nonprofit organizations with these types of licenses are required to conduct the games with only volunteer members from the organization. And they have to have been in continuous existence for 5 years. So this limits payment to a hired manager or operator to no more than the minimum wage. And the proceeds of the game must be directed to the specific purposes. Those in favor say the proposal would allow more opportunities for nonprofits to consider running these bingos and raffles as a revenue stream. They'd have the choice to compensate their volunteers, which in turn would help with the recruitment and retention of the people who work the game. And communities within Colorado benefit from the operation of nonprofits each day. In many locations, Colorado nonprofits are the sole source, which provides an essential resource. Those opposed say allowing less reliable organizations to enter the nonprofit gaming trade will reduce one of the larger revenue streams that nonprofit organizations have and effectively stop efforts in their entirety. And permitting bingo volunteers to receive a wage will reduce profit margin and commercialize the nonprofit charitable gaming trade and potentially reduce the amount of money that they're able to dedicate to their core mission. I thought it was interesting. There's a proponent, which is the Charitable Gaming Issue Committee. And then the opponent is Veterans of Foreign Wars, VFW. So I don't know why they're opposing it, but I noticed that they are. Any questions?
Yes, hi, Peggy. We have a question and I'll read it off to you. Given that it allows the legislature to establish a different requirement in 2025, can we assume that they have some specific action in mind? Is there something that shifts in 2025 here?
I don't know if they have something in mind or not. I think it's only related to the time limit, like right now it's from 5 years to 3 years, so they could potentially reduce it even more. But I don't know if they have something in mind.
Okay, thank you, Peggy.
All right.
I don't see any additional questions on Amendment F.
All right, so we'll go to Charles.
All right, thank you, Peggy. This is Proposition FF, Healthy Meals for All. It was referred as a proposal to change revised statute. It creates a program to provide free healthy breakfasts and lunches to all public school students in Colorado where they participate in the national school meal programs. The funds from this would come by increasing taxes on households which earn more than $300,000 annually and from federal funds designated for school meals. A bit of background. At the beginning of COVID-19, the federal Department of Agriculture also authorized universal free meals for all school students as a way of combating food insecurity. It should be noted that as a result of that, Colorado schools served approximately 1.3 million more school meals in 2021 than pre-pandemic, and the district officials attributed that to the expanded free meals program. This is currently being paid by state and federal funds, which will be adjusted as the program, the COVID program runs out. The proposal creates a Department of Healthy Meals within the Colorado Department of Education and would provide reimbursement to school food authorities for the increased cost. It also is important to note that this measure provides that the food for the program should be grown, raised, or processed in Colorado. Every 2 years, beginning in 2024, the Department of Education would issue a report to the legislature on the effect, impact, and data of this school meal program. Those in favor say that research shows that child hunger diminishes the students' ability to learn and lowers their grades. It also impacts higher costs for families who may be on the margin of not receiving federal subsidy or funds, and allows all students to get healthy breakfasts and lunches. The students would receive the meals on the current free lunch program, and it would be available to schools who are participating in the programs. Those opposed say the measure puts taxes on households at a time when the cost of living continues to increase, and feel that the state should not pay for meals for families who can afford to provide, to pay for lunches or provide the food for their children. Colorado schools they also say Colorado schools are underfunded, and if the voters want to increase taxes, it should go to the school districts to be allotted where the school districts feel is the best use of those funds. Are there any questions?
Hey, Charles, I see no questions on this one.
All right, with that, I will turn it to Susan for ballot or for Proposition GG.
Susan, are you muted?
Yes, thank you for noticing. Proposition GG is a referred measure changing the revised statutes of the state of Colorado and is designed to add a tax table which shows the dollar change in your income taxes for 8 different income groups, whether your taxes are going up or down, but depending on the initiative. Puts this information on the petitions, which are being circulated for signature, and also would put this information on the actual ballot if this proposition is approved. Currently, the tax or the tax impact of a proposition is already summarized on petitions as they're circulated for signatures. And the same information is provided in the blue books annually. So those in favor of this process say that the table with the impacts on tax owed by income allows voters to clearly understand how an income tax increase or decrease would affect them and their families when they're deciding whether to sign a petition or to approve or deny a measure on their ballot. And this measure would also make Coloradans more informed voters and make elections more transparent. Those who are opposed to this measure say that including the table of impacts of the rate change would make ballot titles and thus ballots themselves too long, too costly to print, too costly to mail, and cumbersome to manage this, several pages of a ballot. Voters can already access similar information in the Blue Book. So, are there any questions about this?
Oh, hold on, Susan. I think we just got one. Let me get a chance to read it here. Okay, asking, is this similar to the structure of the ballot explanation where they lead with the dollar amounts in the hopes that voters will not read further and will simply reject any rate change?
I don't know for certain. That's a possible reason behind this. Since the information is already available in the summary form rather than just an explicit tax table, it would seem this might be made up to deter voters from reading the whole thing, but I don't know that.
Okay, I don't see any additional questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
then we'll move back to Peggy.
All right, thank you, Susan. So this one, Proposition 121, income tax rate reduction, would be subject to the issue that we just talked about, GG, if it passes. So this is an income tax rate reduction, a citizen initiative to change the revised statutes. Now, it's kind of like a constitutional amendment because once you lower taxes, you can't raise them without voter approval. So even though it's changing the statutes, the effect is it's like, I mean, it's going to need voter approval to reverse it. So to permanently reduce both the individual and corporate income tax rates from 4.55% to 4.40%. We've had tax rates like we had 5% until 1998, and then 4.75% in 1999 for about 20 years, and then 4.63%. And last year, wait, let me just read this. No, it was in 2020. There was a ballot initiative to lower it from 4.63% to 4.55. So now we'll lower it again to 4.40. In the blue book on page 33 is a chart showing the change in taxes by various income brackets. So that's what would have been on the ballot if we, I mean, that's what would show up on the ballot if we approve Amendment G or Proposition GG. So collection of state income taxes provides a big portion of the state's general fund. Other portions of the general fund are from the sales taxes and also cash funds from fees for government services to be spent on particular programs such as transportation. And then federal government funds for assistance programs such as K-12 education and healthcare. And spending from the general fund pays for state government operations such as education, human services, healthcare, and corrections. A decrease in the rate of the income tax may reduce the amount of money available to pay for state government operations. And in the years when there's plenty of money for a TABOR refund, it's just going to reduce the TABOR refund. It would reduce state tax collections about $412 million in the next fiscal year. Those in favor say this proposal constitutes a modest income tax cut for all taxpayers. Everyone who pays income taxes will receive the exact same tax rate cut of 0.15%. Another argument in favor, Coloradans face the fastest increase in prices over 40 years. Rising costs are strangling household budgets and reducing our standard of living. This would allow Coloradans to keep more of their hard-earned money. And another in favor, lowering taxes is one of the main ways Colorado can attract businesses, entrepreneurs, and job creators to the state. Those opposed say most of the measure's benefits will go to a small population of wealthy taxpayers, including corporations. Almost half of the proposed tax cut would go to tax filers making over $200,000 a year. A Coloradoan making $50,000 annually would see a $75 tax cut. A Coloradoan making $250,000 would see $375, and a taxpayer earning $1 million would see a $1,400 tax break. Second argument, according to estimates, this measure would reduce the state general fund nearly 400 million. And this could cause significant cuts to education and other programs. So the proponents are Path to Zero, Colorado Character, and the Independence Institute. And opponents are Keeping Colorado Great, the Bell Policy Center, and the Colorado Fiscal Institute. Are there any questions on this one?
Hi, Peggy. Well, you may have just answered a couple of the questions we have. Someone asked if we knew the citizen group that initiated this measure. And I know you just mentioned some proponents. Are they the ones that you believe brought this forward too?
Yeah, I'm not sure who brought it forward. I'm not sure.
Okay. And secondly, I know you mentioned some additional figures there about what effect this might have on state and county budgets, especially as it relates to education. And I think you referenced some figures there too.
Well, it's 412 million in the first year, which it's a reduction to the general fund. And so it could affect, especially in lean years, could affect education and corrections and healthcare and other programs that are funded by the general fund.
Okay, thank you. That's it on that topic.
All right, so hear from Charles next.
All right, thank you, Peggy. This is Proposition 122, titled Access to Natural Psychedelic Substances. This was a citizen initiative to change the revised statute. It allows for regulated access to natural psychedelic medicines for adults 21 and older that show promise in treating mental health conditions, allows the use of psychedelic mushrooms at licensed facilities, creates regulated therapy systems so adults can access the natural psychedelic therapy through licensed healing centers. There's a second slide on this. Could you, next slide, please? All right. It develops and promotes public education about the use of natural medicines, removes criminal penalties for personal use and possession of natural psychedelic mushrooms specifically, establishes a national or natural medicine advisory board, prohibits sale of psychedelic drugs for recreational use. It should be noted in terms of some background on this, that the substances that are referred to in this measure are currently listed as Schedule 1 controlled substances by the FDA. Schedule 1 controlled substances are those that are currently defined as a drug with no accepted value for medical use or which has the potential for abuse. Currently, there are ongoing studies with respect to these various psychedelic substances, and the FDA has designated psychedelic mushrooms as one that they are studying for its effect as a therapy for treating depression. Those in favor say veterans suffering from PTSD and those facing terminal diagnosis have found therapies with natural medicines to work where others have failed. Natural medicines show so much promise that the FDA granted breakthrough therapy designation for further study with respect to mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms for depression. And it may demonstrate a substantial improvement over what is currently available. Research studies are going on currently at Johns Hopkins, UCLA, and NYU with respect to these various uses for the psychedelic substances. Those opposed say setting up a regulated program is going too far too soon. They trust that the FDA will make these drugs or substances available when the research proves that they have a given benefit. The measure also allows for the use of a drug that has been illegal for 50 years by decriminalizing it, which could create a black market and expand access to underage individuals and expose people to potentially tainted drugs. Currently, there are no approved therapies for psychedelic mushrooms or therapies. Proposing a regulated program for use of these substances may lead to some to believe that it's approved by the FDA, which is not the case currently. Proponents of this are Natural Medicine of Colorado and various organizations, broad coalition of advocates, including veterans, doctors, nurses, end-of-life advocates, and those who have been working on these issues in the past. Are there any questions?
I don't see any questions, Charles. Go ahead.
All right. With that, we'll go to Proposition 123.
And I'll take it from here. Thank you, Charles. Proposition 123 is again another citizen initiative. It's aimed at dedicating current state tax revenue for affordable housing. It's a portion of the current tax revenue equaling 0.1%. This money would be exempt from the Tabor limits, meaning that it is, let's see, if the revenues are high in a year where there's going to be a Tabor refund, this money would reduce the amount of the refund. If it's a year where the collection of income tax is low, then the money would come from the general fund. This does not increase taxes. This is dealing with our current tax levels, but dedicating a portion of the income tax revenue to housing. It is estimated to bring in 145 million in 22-23 and 290 million in 23-24. And looking forward to 2040, that might bring in a total of $5 billion across those 17 years. Probably provide 170,000 affordable housing units, new affordable housing units. These based on about 10,000 units per year. And currently, the state of Colorado allocates funding to communities to address housing, vouchers for rentals, homelessness, and that sort of thing. Since 2021, the state has allocated over 1.2 billion from the federal ARPA or American Rescue Plan Act, but this is one-time money, whereas committing some of these, our income tax revenue would be ongoing and support the sort of programs that have been set up the last 2 years. And continue to support them in the future. Those who are in favor of this measure say this proposes a sustainable source of funds to address the housing needs for individuals and families. It is nearly impossible for Colorado's lowest wage earners to afford their housing without being cost burdened. They also say this is a comprehensive housing program designed to permanently fund affordable housing across the state and to create incentives for local governments to achieve meaningful growth in affordable housing in their area, as well as it would create new affordable housing and preserve existing stock. This measure would not increase taxes to meet the goals of the proposal. Those who are opposed to this Proposition 123 say the measure would set aside 0.1% of income taxes already being collected to use for affordable housing. It would also have the effect of reducing Tabor refunds by the same amount, meaning it would eventually be a cost to taxpayers. This proposal does not address the existing causes that lead to homelessness and unaffordable housing. It would be better for the free market to deal with these issues. And finally, those opposed say 1 billion for affordable housing has been funded by the state through federal stimulus program in recent years. And this is a duplication of services. So do I hear any questions regarding Prop 123?
I see no questions regarding it.
All right,
Let's move along.
well, we'll move along back to Peggy, I believe.
Yes, thank you, Susan. I'll be covering Proposition 124, which is to increase allowable liquor store locations. So it allows a gradual increase over time in the number of liquor licenses that can be issued to the owner of a retail liquor store for additional locations, and enables the owner of a retail liquor store to hold an unlimited number of retail liquor store licenses on or after January 1st, 2037. So in reading this one, this is kind of a definitions thing. Under current law, liquor licensed drugstores, which are defined as grocery stores with a pharmacy that sells beer, wine, or spirits, they can hold 8 licenses. And this number increases every 5 years until January 2037, when the owner of a liquor licensed drugstore can hold an unlimited number of licenses. So on the other hand, the owner of a retail liquor store, so not a liquor licensed drugstore, a retail liquor store can hold licenses for 3 locations, with 4 locations allowed beginning in 2027. So this proposed amendment would basically put both of them in the same category, to where the owner of a retail liquor store can basically do the same thing as the liquor licensed drugstores. Any new locations must be 1,500 feet from an existing liquor store and follow all other applicable requirements. And this measure does not impact grocery or convenience stores that sell only beer and may have an unlimited number of locations. So those in favor say this measure corrects a long-term competitive disadvantage between retail liquor stores and large grocery chains. And those opposed say large retail liquor chains do not need the same number of licenses as grocery stores to compete effectively. Proposition 124 creates a disadvantage for small, locally owned liquor stores that may not have the capacity or desire to expand. And it benefits large retail liquor store chains that have more resources. So are there any questions on this one?
Yes, Peggy, we have a question. Do you know who initiated getting this on the ballot? Who drove the petition drive?
Okay, I don't know who initiated it. I know that the proponent listed is Coloradoans for Consumer Choice and Retail Fairness. And the opponent is Keeping Colorado Local.
Okay. We have a more of a comment coming in about a major funder for this has been Total Wine and More, but I don't know that they initiated. They may be donating a lot of money to the effort, but
Yeah, that could be.
right. And tossing it back to Susan on Prop 123, similar question, you know, if we know who was behind initiating the ballot issue, and probably keep that in mind for the last 2 that we have to present also, if we know it, so. Okay. And, but, okay, yeah, no additional questions on 124.
I'm sorry, I forgot to unmute myself.
Okay.
Holly, we don't know specifically who initiated 123, but the proponents are Coloradans for Affordable Housing Now, and then a list of about 20 additional organizations. And the only opposed organization listed listed are the Advanced Colorado Action and the Common Sense Institute.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
Mhm.
No new questions, so go ahead.
All right, so we'll go to Charles next for Proposition 125.
Thank you, Peggy. Proposition 125 would allow grocery and convenience stores to sell wine. So citizen initiative creates a new fermented malt beverage and wine retail license to allow grocery stores, convenience stores, and other businesses that are licensed to sell beer, as they are currently, to also sell wine and conduct wine tastings. Those in favor say that consumers want that convenience to be able to buy wine at locations that are convenient to them. And it also allows them to buy wine in grocery and convenience stores just as they do now for beer. Those opposed say that the proposal creates a disadvantage to small locally owned liquor stores that may not have the capacity to expand. And like the previous proposition, it benefits large grocery and convenience store chains that have more resources. The proponents are listed as wine in grocery stores, and the opponent is listed as keeping Colorado local. That's all the information we have in terms of who may or may not have initiated it or who is behind it or supporting this particular proposition. Are there any questions?
No questions for that one, Charles. Thank you.
Alrighty, so I will move on. We'll move on to Proposition 126, and I'll turn it back to Susan.
Thank you, Charles. Proposition 126 deals with third-party delivery of alcoholic beverages. It allows retailers who are licensed to sell beverages on premises or off premises for consumption to deliver alcoholic beverages to their consumers 3 different ways. One is through its own employees, which is what is currently done for restaurants or stores. A second way is through qualified independent contractor, or thirdly, through a third-party delivery service. So this is where your DoorDash people would come in, or Uber or Lyft or that sort of thing. It also deals with the fact that our current delivery of alcoholic beverages from restaurants is allowed as a way of easing the burdens of COVID on businesses. And that is due to be scheduled for repeal in 2025. This proposition would allow that takeout and delivery of alcohol to become a permanent option in the state of Colorado. So under current liquor law, grocery stores can only use their own employees, and this would change it to give them some other options. Those in favor of this proposition passing say that the delivery of groceries and restaurant meals has become a convenience that Coloradans expect and continue to use. Allowing third-party delivery service to deliver alcohol would let many more stores and restaurants provide this service to their customers. Those who are opposed to this proposition say this does not have the safeguards available in a physical store or restaurant that ensure that alcohol is not sold to minors. Under the current law, retail liquor licensees who make deliveries using their own employees are liable for any violation. Under this new measure, retailers would not be liable once the alcohol leaves their premises, and enforcement of third-party alcohol delivery laws is expected to be more difficult. Are there any questions about that?
Yes, hi, Susan. Someone's asking if the delivery services would have to check ID.
Yes, the delivery services would be required to check ID. The delivery person would have to 21 or older, and the delivery person would be charged with not completing the delivery if they detected that the purchaser was intoxicated.
Right, okay, thank you. And do we know of any potential negative impacts of this, of the proponents
I
or
believe,
opponents said?
I believe the only one is the one that those opposed say is that the enforcement of non-underage drinking, or the enforcement of the age regulations would then fall to a third party who may or may not carry that out well, or choose to be responsible. And the originator, the source of the alcohol, who is the business that's currently responsible for that, would no longer be responsible.
Okay, great, thank you, that's it.
Hi, I'm Lisa Moreno, and I'm going to be walking you through the first two of 3 county ballot initiatives. The first one is for countywide wildfire mitigation and fire preparedness. So this was referred to voters by the commissioners. It's 0.1% increase. It is a permanent new tax, would have to be repealed to make it go away. It recognizes the text behind this ballot initiative, recognize the impacts of climate change and increasing fire risk in Boulder County. The goals are to support wildfire mitigation efforts in forests and grasslands, and to support homeowners to prepare for wildfire, so that overall we can protect drinking water and water supplies, reduce risk of catastrophic wildfire, and foster more resilient ecosystems. The funding and ballot initiative builds on the work of 2 county entities. One is the Fireshed Coalition, which was established in 2020 to create a shared vision. It includes all partners around the community that have anything to do with wildfire prevention or wildfire response. And the goal was to create a shared vision to reduce fire risk and a structure for coordination of forest management based on science. The funding raised and by this new tax would provide resources for partners in the community to leverage state and federal funds available to increase education and outreach and support strategic planning, so that the pace and scale of wildfire mitigation in the county can be increased. It will also support wildfire partners' efforts to help residents prepare for wildfires by providing technical and financial support to harden their homes and create defensible space around properties. Those in favor say that wildfire is an increasing risk to Boulder County residents, and forest mitigation projects are necessary and expensive, and this funding would provide important funding to be able to complete mitigation faster and at a landscape scale. They also say that this funding will allow for more innovation and flexibility and the ability to leverage other resources. And that the funding for wildfire partners will result in more resilient homes in the communities, in the mountains and the plains, and is especially important for homeowners in need of financial support to be able to address these address the things they have to do to harden their homes. There was no official opposition, but folks at the hearing said things like that this funding should be spent in the plains before previously existing mountain needs are addressed. Boulder County has other infrastructure needs that should be addressed first. Funding is needed for fire recovery, not mitigation. And the county needs to mitigate its own parks and open space land first. I see no questions.
Yeah, no questions. So go ahead, Lisa.
So the second one is For emergency services, again, this is a 0.1% sales tax, so 10 cents on every $100 spent. It is also a permanent new tax. However, this one declines to by half after the first 5 years. And the purpose of this tax is to support search and rescue efforts and general emergency services in the county. They say that right now there's more than 200 search and rescue calls a year that the county has to respond to. And the county does this mostly through working through contracts with the Rocky Mountain Rescue Group. They also rely on support of, which is a nonprofit all volunteer outfit. They also rely on the support of other nonprofit volunteer outfits such as the Boulder Emergency Squad, Front Range Rescue Dogs, and Mounted Search and Rescue. The bulk of the funding for the first 5 years raised by this tax would be used to create, to build a new headquarters for the Rocky Mountain Rescue Group. Their headquarters sits on federal land that was provided to Boulder County specifically for the purpose of headquarters for this group. But the size of the headquarters they currently have and the conditions of it don't, well, the size of it doesn't meet the needs of the group. They can't have all of their members under one roof for training, and they also can't protect their equipment from the elements. They also have some significant infrastructure issues with it, such as drainage issues, and evidently it's in pretty bad shape. So this funding would help them utilize that gift of that federal land for the original purpose and build a new headquarters that meets their needs. If they didn't do this, they would lose that, the county would lose access to that federal land. And then after the 5 years, the funding would be available for other things, including equipment and training for the 20 fire protection districts in Boulder County, which responded 13,000 calls a year. It would also be used for operations for all of the search and rescue groups, and wildfire firefighting staffing and trailhead safety services. Another important use for this funding would be ambulance services in unincorporated Boulder County. Those in favor of this ballot initiative say the community relies on the services of all of these organizations and their needs should be funded. The current funding model for fire protection districts does not provide enough funds for all of the needs, and supplemental funds for equipment and training would be helpful. Currently, fire protection districts, particularly in the mountain and rural areas, are funded by their by taxes of those folks living in their districts. And it is important to protect lives and property in Boulder County that aren't covered by municipal emergency service response providers. There was no official opposition to this ballot initiative at the hearing. That said, those folks at the hearing who did express opposition said things like ambulance service should not be included in this initiative because it's expensive and they'll absorb too much of the funding. Residents in the community, residents in mountain communities where there are fire protection districts already pay taxes for emergency services and shouldn't have to also pay this tax. And then finally, that residents rebuilding from fires and disasters should be exempt from the new sales and use taxes.
So it's not exactly a question that we have, but a comment that is a good one, I believe. Rocky Mountain Rescue Group conducts the rescues free of charge. So that's it. We can move ahead.
All right, I'm going to talk about the last Boulder County one, which is 1C, transportation sales and use tax extension. So like the previous two measures, it was referred to voters by the county commissioners. Unlike the previous two measures, it's an extension of an existing tax, not a proposed new tax. So it proposes an extension of an existing countywide sales and use tax to fund transportation improvements. Voters first approved the 0.1% transportation tax in November 2001, and then voted to extend it in November 2007. It's currently set to expire on June 30th, 2024. And this year's ballot issue has no expiration date, making this tax permanent until it is repealed. County funds are often used to leverage federal and state funds. In the past 15 years, it is estimated that the county has funded approximately 121 million in projects, matched with 269 million in regional, state, and federal funding, for a total funding impact of 390 million. A draft list of projects and programs has been developed for 2024 to 2039, which is the first 15 years. The list can be found on pages 17 and 18 of the notice of election booklet that was sent to voters by Boulder County. And there's also a link on our ballot issue 1C write-up on our website. Future projects will continue to be identified through public engagement processes, such as the Boulder County Comprehensive Plan, Boulder County Transportation Master Plan, and the Boulder County Consortium of Cities. Those in favor say these programs have a positive impact on climate change and air quality. Accessibility and affordability of transportation systems are critical for seniors, veterans, and other vulnerable residents. And there is a continuing need for improvements to the transportation system in Boulder County to address issues such as safety, interconnectivity, changing technologies, and climate change. And there is no organized opposition, and I listened to the hearing and didn't hear a single opposing view during the hearing. There might be some out in the community, but I don't know what it is. Are there any questions on this?
No questions, Peggy.
All right, so now we'll go to Linda Holtman, who will talk about the school district issue.
Okay, hi. This is Boulder Valley School District RE2 ballot issue 5A. The Board of Education asks for voter approval of a $350 million bond issue for capital construction and maintenance. Repayment costs of $714 million maximum. District property tax increase not to exceed $32 million a year, approximately $120 per year on a home of $600,000 in value. The funds will be used to meet some critical needs in school facilities as listed in the ballot language: upgrade buildings, remove asbestos, expand ADA accessibility, and the etc. is in there because there's quite a long list. If you're interested, you can go to the Boulder Valley School District website, bvsd.org, and do a search for critical needs and find out what they're planning to do in each school. Strengthen career and technical education, which this will be done in the middle schools and high schools. Replace the aging New Vista High School building, which was formerly Baseline Junior High. Build and equip a new elementary school pre-K through 5 in Erie, and repair and upgrade all 56 schools in the district. Proponents say all students benefit from safe, functional, comfortable schools. Taxpayer investments are useful and are extending the useful life of facilities. Delaying this critical work as our buildings continue to deteriorate would continue to make the conditions deteriorate while costs would escalate. The money will go to necessary projects, the New Vista High School, a new New Vista High School, Parkdale subdivision in Erie, which is is under construction now. So we definitely know there will be some more students CTE, and other critical needs. Opponents say in 2016, Bvsd voters approved a property tax increase for similar things, capital construction technology. More of the 2016 fund should go to maintenance so we don't have to fund so many repairs with long-term bonds. And there really is no organized opposition to this ballot issue. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm not seeing any, Linda.
Okay, I will turn it over to Deborah, who will discuss the Boulder Public Library District issue.
Thank you, Linda. This is Boulder Public Library District ballot issue 6C. And you can see our method here, where we started with people with the ballot issues that the most people vote on. Now we're down to something that only people who live in the proposed district will find in their ballot. 6C proposes forming a library district beginning next year and funding it. And we, on our website, we link two maps. One is just a map of the district with kind of the street names and the other landmarks to show you the boundaries. And then there's also an interactive map where you can enter your street address to see if you're in the district. It'll be basically the city of Boulder, including Gun Barrel, and then some precincts in unincorporated Boulder County, which are all spelled out. It does not include any of the towns and cities that have their own library, so it doesn't include Louisville, Lafayette, Longmont, Erie, or Netherland. It doesn't include Niwot or Superior. The funding would be from a new 3.5 mil property tax within the district. The first year revenue is expected to be 18.78 million. And that comes out to about $23 per $100,000 of residential property value, $92 for commercial property per year. By law, library districts may only be funded by a property tax. So the 18.78 million would allow the district library to do a lot more. It's about double the current operating budget of the city library, the Boulder Public Library. Next year's city budget is going to, the proposed city budget is going to increase the library funding by 21%. And the city library funding comes mostly from the general fund, which is mainly sales taxes and fees, and a very small amount of property tax. 1/3 of a mil is actually stated in the city charter, and there's maybe a little more in the general fund. Now, the people who live in the district who also live in the city of Boulder are going to be asked on their ballot in question 2C, whether to remove the 1/3 mil from the charter if 6C passes. The ballot language is long and very informative. It describes 6 ways the library district could use the additional funds. First, to improve literacy programs, including partnerships with schools, provide additional free and safe public meeting places. They could update and improve the holdings of books, ebooks, movies, music, and bilingual materials. The district library could extend hours at all the existing libraries and open a Gun Barrel branch library. Improve maintenance and security at all the library facilities. And finally, expand access to STEAM programs, makerspace, and free internet. STEAM, S-T-E-A-M, stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, math. Makerspaces are places like the library's Building 61 that provide all sorts of machines, some of them quite advanced. some not, all useful, so that people can work together and share ideas. Issue 6C is a referendum that was put on the ballot by petition. Petitioners first went to the Boulder City Council, which voted 6-3 to put it on the ballot. But the county commissioners disagreed, and the group gathered enough signatures on a petition to the commissioners to put it on the ballot. The governance issues are sometimes discussed, if this is a very controversial issue. But they're not in the ballot language, but they are codified in existing Colorado state law. A district library is a unit of state government, not district, county, or city. If 6C passes, the law says the city council and county commissioners will appoint trustees. The library district and the city will negotiate an intergovernmental agreement to cover the transfer of assets. The district trustees will write bylaws and hire a director, among other duties. The ballot language doesn't say this. There must be a legal reason, but I mean, it's just understood that the assets of the district library at the beginning anyway would be all the assets of the Boulder Public Library, the buildings, books, other materials. There are two groups. Yes, group is BoulderLibraryChampions.org. They put it on the ballot. They went to the commissioners, got the petition signed. Then we have the no vote is advocated by a group called KeepOurLibraries.com. So I'll just go over 6 arguments on each side, but both groups have very informative websites. The Boulder Library Champions say, vote yes, because first, property tax provides stable funding. Property tax revenue did not drop during the pandemic the way sales tax revenue did. Number 2, the 3.5 mil property tax would greatly improve library services, which are currently below maintenance level in the city. 3, library districts are the most common form of library governance in Colorado and the most equitable, reliable, and accountable. 4, a well-funded library system can partner with schools and businesses to support education and workforce development. 5, if 6C passes and the city of Boulder doesn't need to fund the library, it can use the money elsewhere or reduce other city taxes. And finally, number 6, over 30% of people holding a library card live outside Boulder, and most of them live within the boundaries of the proposed district. So if 6C passes, they will share the costs of the library. It's, it's against the, I guess, the law to charge for any library, public library, to charge for the library card. So this is a way of having tax contribution from the whole district. KeepOurLibraries.com has many arguments opposed. I'll go over 6 main arguments, reasons to vote no. First, the Boulder Public Library has won numerous awards, so why fix something that's not broken? 2, the city's proposed library budget for the next year shows a larger percentage increase over this year's budget than the increases for the police and fire departments. So the city is more serious about libraries. Number 3, the property tax increase could not come at a worse time when people and businesses are struggling and property taxes keep increasing because of valuation increases. 4, tax proposals are also on the ballot from Boulder County, Bvsd, the city, and the state. So 6C proposes even more taxes. Number 5, with a library district, property tax will increase, but the sales taxes will remain. And finally, number 6, There are issues with district library governance, namely, there is no direct election of the trustees. Details of governance and provisions for the final disposition of the city's library assets will not be determined until after the election in the IGA, the Intergovernmental Agreement. So, are there questions on this? Oh, my goodness, what a surprise.
There are some questions, Deborah. So we'll start with an easy one first. You mentioned a map that shows the district. Could you repeat where that's located?
Oh, it's on the website for our league, lwvbc.org. And then you go to the page called 2022 election. And the interactive map, I'm pretty sure it's on at least one of the advocacy groups' websites. Maybe both. It's a very useful map.
Okay. And of course, the other way to know if you're living within the district is whether this question is on your ballot, because if you're outside the district, you don't vote on this. Is that correct?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
Okay, thank you. Do you know how the passage or failure of this initiative might affect the North Boulder Library branch?
Well, I'm not sure, but I believe that completing that is in this year's budget or next year's. There might be, yeah. I believe that's going to be done. It won't cancel. They don't list it in their ballot language, but it's in the works as I understand it.
Okay. And do you know how the proposed budget, if this district passes, compares to the current budget as provided by the city?
Well, this would be the first year, 18.78 million. The operating budget of the city is 9.1 million. I see there's a lot. There's a comment in the questions that in actuality, there are a lot of other little funds that go in that support the library. And that next year it will be, the city funding will be a lot more than, but this year it's considered 9.18 million, and there's also some other, non-operating budget factors that go into that. So there's some people quote an 11-something million.
Okay. Let's see. And do you know who's leading Keep Our Libraries, that organization?
Let's see, Crystal Gray, Lisa Morzell. Boulder Library Champions is Johnny Teeter and a host of people. There are quite a few on each side.
Okay. And let's see, finally, yes, if this passes, council intends to repeal that 1/3 mill levy. Do we know the impact on the median household? Do you have figures based on home values for that?
No, we haven't calculated that. Our total, as you know, the city mill levy isn't itemized on our bills. It's 8-point-something. So the 1/3 mill would be, I assume, quite minimal.
Right. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any additional questions come in. But I do, not related to the library, want to go back to Peggy for a moment, since we still have some time I see on the clock. With a more general question on state issues when they're referred by the legislature, is there any way to know which party might have initiated the ballot issue?
Well, so Rush, I don't remember the very first part of the question.
For state issues that are referred by our state legislature, we have ways of finding out how the vote went for referring it to the ballot, but do we know which party initiated it?
Well, I guess, I mean, you would just assume that the party that passed it is probably the party that initiated it. Well, this is on the ones that are on a more partisan basis. You can look at Colorado General Assembly, their website, and look at resolutions. And then you can find the actual resolution and who introduced it and what the vote total was. You know, in this year's case, the Democrats are controlling the legislature. And so on the ones that were pretty much a partisan vote, those were Democratic issues that were brought forward to the voters. But I'm not sure on the constitutional amendments. Those are almost unanimous, and so those could have been brought by either party.
Okay. That appears to be it for questions. Thanks, Peggy.
We're wrapping up, and I want to thank all our ballot team leaders for their efforts and obvious knowledge on the issues. So thanks a lot for that. And I want to also thank our League of Women Voters election season sponsors, whose contributions enable bilingual candidate forums, ballot issue presentations, voter outreach, and our vote411.org election information platform. And our sponsors include Big Red F Restaurant Group, Christina's Luxuries, Elevations Credit Union, High Plains Bank, Lions Gaddis, and the Simmons Family Fund. And we also want to thank the Boulder County Bar Foundation that supports our efforts with ballot issue presentations, education, and outreach. And I also just want to show you, it was mentioned before, where we have information on these ballot issues. So this is our homepage, and you can see that there's a 2022 election information, and that's where you can find specifics on all of this. I also want to show that we have a calendar of upcoming events. So if you want to watch more forums like this, especially for upcoming candidate forums, you would go to events on our website. The League of Women Voters works throughout the year to empower voters and defend democracy. If you want to lend your time and skills to encourage civic engagement for all people in a nonpartisan manner, please join us. The complete ballot issue pamphlet is available again on our website, along with links to candidate forums and all the information you need for the 2022 election season is at lwvbc.org or this site right here, vote411.org. And on behalf of League of Women Voters of Boulder County, we want to thank you for joining us today.